Welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I'm talking all about my absolute best luxury foundation. So I'm doing my top 10 list. I wanted to narrow it down to 10 just because I felt like 5 was too few, but if I did 15, that's too many. A top 10 seemed very reasonable. I first want to go over my skin type. So I have dry skin and I have very sensitive skin. So I need to be careful with the kind of foundations I'm using. That goes for like my skincare and primers as well. So if something doesn't break me out and doesn't make my skin react, I call that a success. So for this, I'm going to go from lightest coverage to fuller coverage just because that makes the most sense in my brain. So to start off with, I have the Chanel Le Beige Water Fresh Tint. So this from Chanel was, I think it was released in the summer, like maybe 2 years ago. You can see how much I have gone through this foundation. So I tend to run through this foundation a little quicker. I am not exactly sure why, because it does contain the same 1 fluid ounce that normal foundations do. Probably, I guess, because I use it more often. And this foundation, and I hesitate calling it a foundation because it really is a tint on your skin. I wear mine in the shade medium, and I also have this in a deeper shade because I think this works fantastic as a bronzer as well. Because what this does is it just gives your skin a very beautiful tint. So it does a lot more for the texture of your skin. It really blurs texture on the skin. It really blurs out the appearance of pores and stuff like that. But it's not really going to add a lot of pigment on your skin. So you're not going to get a lot of pigmentation. You're not going to get a lot of coverage with this product. It essentially is a skin tint. So it gives you a very light veil of coverage. And it just makes your skin tone look nice and even. And it's a great no makeup base. If you want it to look like you are wearing no foundation on your skin and you just want your skin to look healthy and plump and glowy, but again, it never comes to that point where it looks greasy or oily or anything like that. This is just such a beautiful product. This is something I bring on like vacation if I'm going anywhere, or if it's really warm outside, especially in the summer months. I think this is a fantastic product. This is also a great multi-use product because, like I said, you can buy a deeper shade and use that as a bronzer, because if you use this as a bronzer, it's not going to add coverage or too much color. It just adds that tint, so it looks very natural on the skin. And this is just what I use if I want my skin to look healthy and I don't want it to look like I'm wearing makeup. So this is just a fantastic product. Highly recommend this one. It is beautiful. Now this one I had trouble picking between 2 foundations, and I will kind of mention my other foundation pick. But my next on the list is the Chantecaille Future Skin. This is an oil-free gel foundation, and I have mine in the shade Cream. So it does come in this little jar, and you can see it's a kind of creamy consistency. And I really like this because when you do feel the texture of it, it feels very cooling on the skin, and it just blends into the skin like a dream. So again, this is going to be something where you can't really detect makeup on the skin. It never looks like you have anything heavy on the skin. It just looks like your skin is healthy and more glowy and just a little bit more perfected. But if you do have any pigmentation or discoloration on the skin, you will have to go in with a concealer because, again, this is a light coverage foundation. I don't even think it's really buildable to medium. But the beautiful thing about this is how it blends into the skin. You probably can't even see it on my hand because it's undetectable on your skin. So it's really nice, again, if you have maybe an in-person event where you just want your skin to look beautiful, but you don't want it to look like you're wearing makeup, but you still want a little bit of coverage more so than this. This is a great option because it just does that, and it's so beautiful. It never fades away awkwardly throughout the day. It never settles into any creases. Now, I wouldn't say this is like the most long-wearing foundation on the market, but it fades away very gracefully on the skin. So I feel like that it just fades away elegantly. So again, you're not going to notice it creasing or fading or getting cakey throughout the day. It remains that very consistent light coverage, and it's just such a beautiful product. This is something that I reach for over and over, especially for even if I have like a smoky eye, kind of like that contrasting look of a smoky eye with really light coverage that looks natural and fresh. And this is just such a beautiful, plumping, healthy foundation. Now, I say that I had trouble picking because the other option that I was trying to decide between for my top 10 list was the Sisley Phyto-Teint Nude foundation. Now, I think these are very similar in coverage. The Sisley is more blurring and perfecting on the skin. The only reason why I am mentioning this one is because the Chantecaille is better for my dry skin. If you have oily combination or normal skin, I think the Sisley would actually work better for you. And again, I like that it has that effect of the blurring and perfecting. This doesn't do the same blurring job on the skin as the Sisley does, but because I have drier skin, I can't really use this one as much in the winter just because my skin's a little bit drier. But it is so beautiful, very skin-like if you want your skin but better, that never covers anything up, but is a beautiful blurred look. This is gorgeous. This is just a gorgeous foundation as well. So that's kind of a sneaky little add-in that I'm adding, but I would just say dry skin, go for the Chantecaille, oily, normal, combo skin, go for the Sisley. They're both beautiful and similar in the level of coverage that they give the skin. So quickly wanted to mention that. And then next on the list is just such a beautiful foundation. This is the Clé de Peau, the foundation. I have two shades, so I have the shades 030 and 040. And this foundation is just, it is absolute perfection. So it comes again in this jar packaging. It is different from the Chantecaille one though. This is more of a gel consistency, while this actually, the texture is very similar to a moisturizer. So it's almost a little creamier, and the texture, oh my God, I can't get over this foundation every time I feel it. It feels like silk. I've never experienced a foundation to feel this way, and it blends into the skin like a dream. So I would say the Clé de Peau, the foundation, has a little bit more coverage than the Chantecaille, and this does the most impeccable job of just blurring everything out on the skin. It smooths out pores and texture. It just lays over the skin in such a beautiful way. If you have mature skin, this will just sit over your lines perfectly. And it just feels so comfortable on the skin. It's very nourishing. It again adds that very plumped and healthy look to your skin, which I just think is such a youthful and beautiful look. And I just have been loving this foundation. This definitely does have a glowier finish, so it is a bit more on the radiant side. But again, it just wears really flawlessly throughout the day. It never gets too oily, it never gets greasy, it never separates or it never fades. And I actually feel like for a lighter coverage foundation that is more radiant, this is very long wearing. I don't ever have to touch up. I don't get any creasing, and it never settles. But just the job that this does on perfecting and blurring the skin and just how healthy and fresh you look, it's just always something that I reach for, especially for special occasions when I just want my skin to look perfect. But again, it doesn't look perfect in that you're adding so much coverage to the skin. It just does this really great job of like reflecting the light, so it just looks really smoothing on the skin. It is such a gorgeous foundation, and not a lot of people talk about it. I get why. It is definitely super expensive, but the way this makes your skin look is bar to none. This is just kind of an exquisite product in my collection. So that it definitely makes the top 10 list. And then next on my list is an old favorite. This is definitely not a new foundation. This is the Surratt Dewdrop Foundation, and I love it so much that I have it in 3 shades, so if that's to tell you anything. The packaging isn't anything spectacular. It just comes in this little like dropper tube, which does make it more convenient if you're traveling or anything like that. But this is another foundation that is a beautiful light to medium coverage. I definitely think you can build this one to medium coverage. And it just, again, it really perfects the skin in such a subtle way where it's perfecting your skin without adding a ton of coverage to it. It just has this beautiful light reflecting quality to it that adds the smoothing effect to the skin. So everything just kind of gets blurred out when you apply this on the skin. If you have any kind of texture in the front of your face, this just does a great job of laying over that. I also think this would be fantastic for mature skin as well because it does have that radiance to it, similar to the Clé de Peau. It has that radiant effect without it being shimmery or anything like that. I think the Surratt definitely has a bit more radiance than the Clé de Peau, the foundation, but again, it's nothing obnoxious. And this again is not the most long wearing. But if you mix it in with something like the Dior Air Flash, that extends its longevity. And even though it's not super duper long wearing, like you probably can't get 12 hours wear out of it, it fades away again very gracefully and elegantly so that you're not going to get any separation or creasing or patchiness or anything. It's just a beautiful foundation. And again, I reach for it if I want my skin to maybe look a little bit more perfected, but I'm still going to like an in-person event where I just want my skin to look healthy and beautiful, but I don't want it to look like I have makeup sitting on top of my skin. This is another great option. So I am wearing the Clé de Peau foundation today, and I always regret that I don't reach for it more often. And I think because it's so expensive, I tend to reserve that foundation for, again, more special occasions when I want my skin to just look its absolute best. But I mean, foundation expires. I think this product says it's actually good for 2 years, which is a little better than normal foundations. But even so, foundation expires and I need to be using these products more often in just my everyday life. And I always remember just how beautiful and amazing that this looks on the skin. Never overdone, never looks like you're actually wearing like a full face of makeup or anything. The next foundation on my list is something you have heard me talk so much about. This is the Chanel Sublimage L'Essence de Tint. I have mine in the shade B40. I could probably do a B30 actually, but I don't know if you can tell, I'm about halfway through this foundation already. And this is just, I like to describe this as an elegant foundation. Now this has a beautiful velvet finish to it, but it has this slight radiance to it. Definitely not as radiant as the other foundations that I mentioned being radiant, but it just has this ever so soft glow that just looks so sophisticated and elegant on the skin. It's so hard to describe unless you see it in person, but just the velvetiness it has on the skin and how it gives you a very natural finish, but then it just has this ever so slight glow is just so stunning. It's one of the most beautiful foundations I have ever encountered, that I have ever tried. And this is amazing. It is so long lasting on the skin. I can wear this for 10 to 12 hours and I never have any issues. And even though this has a slight radiance to it, it never gets more glowy throughout the day. It remains in that slight glow and it remains that kind of velvety finish with that slight glow all day long without it becoming more glowy, which I think is very impressive for a foundation to kind of maintain that elegance throughout the day. So this, again, if you're looking for something super long wearing, and it has a medium coverage, I would say you can definitely get it to light coverage, but you can build it up to a medium coverage, and it just looks so beautiful on the skin. I never have any issues with it. I am always so happy with my makeup when I use this foundation. So if you're looking for like an any occasion foundation, you can wear this during the day. You can also wear it during the night. This is a foundation I pull, again, for any occasion because I know it will work in any scenario and I'll have no problems with long-lasting effects of it or how it looks on the skin because it always looks beautiful. Chantecaille definitely makes great makeup bases, so I noticed that a lot of my favorites are actually from Chantecaille. Next on the list is the Chantecaille Just Skin Tinted Moisturizer. So although this is called a tinted moisturizer, I actually think this has pretty decent coverage. It has pretty much a medium coverage. You can get lighter coverage if you go in with a small amount, but this isn't a typical, what I'd say, tinted moisturizer in that it has super light coverage. This actually, like I said, has good coverage. And it comes in this little squeezy tube, so the tube isn't, or the packaging isn't super elegant or anything like that. But I actually like this because you can use it for travel. You can use it if you're just going over for a night somewhere. This is just easy packaging because it's not going to break. It's just very convenient. But the convenience aspect isn't my favorite thing about this foundation, obviously. So it comes out almost in this thicker consistency, but it's a really beautiful formula. Even though it does have that kind of thicker consistency, it blends into the skin really beautifully. And again, I'm just always happy when I use this product. I'm never disappointed with how my makeup looks. And for a tinted moisturizer, this actually has really great longevity. It lasts all day long for me and does a great job covering discoloration or pigmentation. Now you're not going to get full coverage, so you might have to go in with a little bit of concealer, but it's just a really great tinted moisturizer that has a really nice level of glow, but it's not too much glow. So I do think if you had oily skin, you could make this work if you just set it down with a powder. But this is just such a great go-to foundation for me. I can use it all year long and never have problems with it. So my top 10 list, I also need to make sure these foundations work all year long for me because that's important when you're choosing a top foundation. You want to make sure it works in like all environments. You want to make sure it works well in the summer and in the winter time when the weather changes. And for me, I can just use this all day long. It's a product that I can rely on in any situation. And again, it just is easy to travel and it just always looks really pretty on the skin. So that is why I really enjoy this foundation. And in this foundation, I do wear the shade Glow. So just a great all-rounder foundation. This is another product you have heard me speak a lot about. This is the Peau Radiant Fluid Foundation Natural. This was released from Peau last year, I want to say. It came into Canada a little bit earlier than it did in the States. And this is just such a great, again, every day, every occasion kind of foundation. I can wear this to work and feel confident and like it's not too much makeup, but I can wear it on an evening out. And this has spectacular longevity. I have worn this for 12 hours and had no issues with separation or fading or anything like that. It is particularly amazing in how long wearing this foundation is. Now I know that there is a matte version of this, but I prefer the natural version because I do have dry skin. but even though this is called a radiant foundation, it only has a slight radiance to it. It's not overbearing, it's not over the top. I actually think this has more of a natural finish on me, especially being on the drier side. But this just does such a great job, again, of blurring out your skin as well. When you apply it to the skin, you get this amazing smoothing effect on your skin. I especially notice it in areas where maybe I have a little bit more texture. So if I do have pores in like the front of my face, and I do have, you know, a little bit of discoloration, because everyone does. I do have freckles and I do have a little bit of pigment, but this just smooths those areas out and it lays over texture on the skin really, really beautifully. This is another foundation that I think would work fantastic on mature skin. And if you do have any texture on your skin, this would be a great choice as well, because just of how smoothing and blurring it is on the skin. It almost looks like you have a photo filter on your skin when you wear this foundation. So this is a great foundation as well if you are going out for an evening when you want your makeup to be long wearing. And I have worn this with a mask over top, and I haven't had any transfer issues, so I do believe this is transfer resistant. It's just such a great everyday foundation. And again, even though this has a more medium coverage, it still looks very natural on the skin. Now, it's not going to look like a no makeup, but it is still going to look more skin-like on the skin as well, for something being that more medium coverage. Peau just does amazing complexion products. So I definitely recommend this one, and this is a top favorite foundation. Now this foundation is a newcomer. This is my newest foundation in my collection. This is the Dior Captured Totale Super Potent Serum Foundation. Now it's actually hard for me to gauge which one has more coverage between the Peau that I just mentioned and this one. They are extremely, extremely similar. I would say that the Dior has maybe like a teensy bit more coverage, and it also is a little bit more velvety on the skin. So it doesn't have that radiance that the Peau one does, but this is so beautiful. I have done a full review on it. If you want to see my thoughts on that, I can link that down below. But this is just such an underrated foundation. I have heard no one talk about it. Now this is a skincare kind of serum-based foundation, but it's not as expensive as the Peau or the Chanel Sublimage L'Essence. But it does the exact same thing that those foundations do, in that it adds that filtered smoothing effect on your skin. It looks like you have a filter on when you wear this foundation, because it is so smoothing and blurring and just looks fantastic on the skin. This also had great longevity on me as well. I can wear this for 12 hours. Don't need to touch up this foundation because, again, it is a very velvety finish on me. And it just looks, I can't get over how smooth my skin looks and just how perfected my skin looks. Again, without adding a ton of coverage on your skin. So you're not going to look heavy or anything like that. You're not going to look cakey or anything like that, because I do not enjoy that in a foundation. But this is just so beautiful. Again, I feel like this is an any occasion makeup. You could just have this one foundation in your collection and wear this to work. You could wear this out with the girls. You could wear this for dinner. You could wear this to a special occasion. And this is a great all-rounder foundation as well. This just works well in any situation that I have worn it in so far. I have worn it to the gym to work out in. It still looked really beautiful as I went about my day. So I think that speaks great for this product. And again, I didn't really have any transfer when I wore a mask over top. This is just such a great foundation, and it is extremely underrated. I would highly recommend it if you haven't tried this out. One of the most beautiful foundations in my entire collection. It is wonderful. Next up, I have the Chantecaille Future Skin Cushion Foundation. So of course, this is a cushion foundation. It kind of is a little bit of bulky packaging because it just like opens in different directions, and it is a little thicker, if you can tell. But it is such a beautiful foundation, and again, this would make it very convenient for traveling, because it is that like packaging. It is that plastic packaging, and this formula is just really, really stunning on the skin. Again, it gives a very velvety finish. I don't detect any radiance in this. For me, it's more of a skin-like finish. It doesn't really have that much of a glow to me. But the lovely thing about this foundation is that it has a really thin texture, so you can build this foundation up. The coverage on this one is definitely the fullest of Chantecaille's base products. This definitely has the fullest coverage, but because the texture of this foundation is so thin, it's really buildable as well, and you can build it up in a few different layers without it looking heavy on the skin. So if you do suffer from pigmentation, or if you do suffer from discoloration and like a little bit more coverage in areas, you can add more coverage with this foundation without it starting to look heavy or without it starting to look textured on the skin, because the texture of this is just so thin. This also is transfer resistant, so this is a great foundation choice if you are looking for something that is very long wearing on the skin. I haven't had any issues with this separating or fading throughout the day or anything like that. It just sits on the skin beautifully. It doesn't look heavy in any areas. And again, it adds that very smooth effect. I feel like this foundation just adds such a creaminess to the skin where it just looks flawless and beautiful all day long. And this is just a gorgeous foundation. If I want my skin to look a little bit more perfected, so typically that will be if I am going out somewhere, I will reach for this foundation because it just looks beautiful every single time. And this is definitely something I use more in the warmer months when it's hotter outside because, again, of how thin the texture is, so it doesn't feel heavy at all on the skin. It just always feels really lightweight and it remains feeling lightweight all throughout the day. So I really enjoy that about it, especially when it gets warmer outside. And because my skin is a little bit drier, this works really well for me in the hotter months because then by the time it's summer, I maybe get a little bit of a glow to my skin, but it still looks very skin perfecting and blurring and all the stuff that I love. It just is a little bit more perfecting on the skin, which is why I like to reach for it for more special occasions and things like that. But it's just such a beautiful foundation. And then last on my list is the Tom Ford Shade and Illuminating Soft Radiance Foundation. So this was actually a toss-up between, I was debating between using or adding this one or the Dior Air Flash foundation. Ultimately, I decided on the Tom Ford because the Dior Air Flash, I actually don't like to use it on its own. I like to mix it with foundations. So because I'm always mixing this into foundations and it's not like my favorite on its own, I decided to cut that from the top 10 list. But the Tom Ford Shade and Illuminate Soft Radiance Foundation definitely has the most full coverage out of all the foundations I've talked about. I would say that the coverage level is very similar to the Chantecaille Future Skin Cushion, but this one does have just a bit more coverage and also has a bit more radiance to it. So the radiance in this reminds me of the Clé de Peau Radiant Fluid Foundation Natural, but this one just has more coverage on it. So if you're looking for something with a bit more coverage, I would highly recommend this foundation. Now, this foundation is what I wanted the La Mer Soft Fluid Foundation to be. I've heard so many people talk about how that's their holy grail foundation, but that one just never worked out for me. It always looks a little bit too makeup-y on my skin, but this one doesn't have that makeup-y look on my skin. It still has that very beautiful skin-like effect to it, and it just looks so soft and beautiful on the skin. Again, it adds that really beautiful blurred effect to any texture on the skin, which is what I look for in a foundation. I want my skin to look smooth and kind of poreless and textureless, and this is what this foundation does. Again, this is something I don't use on an everyday basis, but this is a foundation I reach for special occasions, or if I'm going out in the evening, maybe for dinner or something, or if I have more like special plans. This is something I pull for because it has great longevity. It looks beautiful on the skin, never heavy. It never looks cakey. It's a great buildable foundation, and it's just such a lovely one. And I don't hear that many people talk about it. It's beautiful if you're looking for a great kind of special occasion foundation that has a bit more coverage to it, that has great longevity, and just looks stunning and flawless on the skin. It almost adds that like kind of beautiful candlelit glow effect to the skin because it has that slight radiance. But even though it has that slight radiance, it's going to have great longevity and it's never going to look oily or greasy throughout the day. So that is my top 10 luxury foundation list. I wanted to make these kind of comprehensive videos where I talk about my top 10 best of videos in different categories. So let me know if you want to see this for like bronzers and blushes and eyeshadows and all that stuff, because I definitely want to have something I can come back to and alter. Maybe I'll do these updated videos every 2 years or something like that, just to keep my kind of top 10 list in check. Let me know if you guys enjoyed this video. Please let me know down below what your favorite foundations are, because if I didn't mention them and I don't have them in my collection, I would absolutely love to try them out. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. Like this video if you like it, and I'll see you in my next video.